welcome. Adi here from Hit the Road Music Studio. Thank you for joining to another episode of the Hit the Road Music podcast, all about the music industry. Today, we have a wonderful interview with Frank Walter, is teacher in the Music Production University of Kent. And he has some golden tips for us that we can apply to become better engineers. We will talk about for whom the audio production school is. It's interesting, as we had last week the interview with Emily Bowie, and she talked about her experience that was not the most positive in the music production school. So we have an interesting discussion here, and Frank is truly sharing wonderful tips that you can use in your everyday life, not only as a mixing engineer, but for whatever you want to learn. If you enjoy this podcast, hit the subscribe button, and if you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section. If you have questions for Frank, I will forward them to Frank. And yeah, stay tuned for more. Enjoy the interview. So, hey everybody, today we are with my friend Frank Walker.
Hello everyone.
Frank, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing amazing. Like the year started really good.
Yeah.
Just came back from surfing. I'm now in my hippie clothes because it's getting cold. But everything is fine, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Frank, at first for everybody, who are you and what are you doing?
Who am I? So my name is Frank Walker. I'm several things, I guess. Part of me is I'm a freelance mixing engineer. So yeah, I do mixing, I do mastering from my home studio, which I'm currently sitting in. You can see around me. But my day job, if you like, is that's two parts as well. So I'm a music technician at a university, and the other half is that I'm a lecturer at the university as well. So I teach as well as tech. So I've sort of got a view on both sides, if you like, of the fence in academia. And yeah, that's me really.
Amazing, 2 in 1.
Yeah.
And in which university are you?
It's at the University of Kent.
All right.
In the UK.
All right. And since when are you doing it?
So I started teching in 2010. So yeah, 10 years ago now. So quite a while. I sort of fell into that, to be honest, as it began as a cover position. So I'd only recently graduated myself, and yeah, I was just part-time, just covering, and then that slowly morphed into full-time, and then that slowly morphed into the teaching side of things as well. So it's sort of, so teaching I've sort of always done a little bit of. So it's hard to say when I kind of properly started that, because it was just kind of dribs and drabs coming in, and now it's moved on. But for the past couple of years at least, I've officially had the two roles.
Wow, this sounds great. And since when are you mixing?
Mixing, I mean, that would have begun when I was a teenager, really. It's when I started mixing. I mean, that was my own stuff, my own music. I think that's how most people start, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess that would have been, what are you looking at, like 2005, maybe? How old am I now? Yeah, so maybe before then. Probably around like the age of 15. And I'm 32 now, I think. So yeah, however long that is. I mean, again, starting mixing is different to sort of when I'd actually consider myself a mixing engineer, which comes a bit later and is also still sort of growing, if you like.
This sounds great. Yeah, everybody started. I think most of the people started like this. Yeah, just from the motivation. Hey, how does this fader works and how does the compressor works?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It basically started from, like I said, as in a band, and you go do a recording, and you're just like not even recording myself, like going to another studio, and it comes the track comes back and it's not quite as good as you're used to hearing, properly recorded bands, if you like, because you're recording in some weird kind of makeshift studio or whatever, with someone who's just like doing you a favor, and then you're like, well, why is it not sounding as good? And you sort of just start thinking, okay, well, what are the things that get it to that next level? And then it just sort of snowballs from then, really.
Oh yeah. Same by me. I was just interested in like, hey, how to make this sound better?
Yeah. Basically always searching for that next level.
Now I'm curious, did you went the traditional way, like being an assistant in a studio and then working your way up, or fully home studio?
No, fully home studio. So the home studio side of my life, if you like, is fairly recent. So I've sort of officially come out, if you like, as a mix engineer just in September, just gone, 2020. Basically, when I finished this studio. So this was always like a sort of home project. Like I've always wanted a space which I could make my own music in, mix my own music in, that kind of stuff. And finally managed to cobble something together. And in the previous years, I've always done work, but I've never sort of advertised myself as an engineer. So it's always just been through sort of word of mouth, or just I might have met someone at uni or at a gig somewhere, wherever it might be, and they knew I'd sort of done audio. So I'd have the odd mixing job here and there. I'd have the odd sort of location sound job here and there. So that's always been going on in the background, really. But yeah, it wasn't until I built this and I was like, okay, let's try and actually put myself out there as a mixing engineer. So I didn't go through the sort of traditional route of assistant engineer, if you like. I've pretty much been on the academia side, so teaching and teching, with the odd jobs coming in here and there.
Wow, amazing! I remember because we met via Mix of Monday.
Yeah.
Organized by Mark Mahler Audio.
Yeah.
Where four mixing engineers are mixing the same track and present it to the band live. And I totally love your mixes. They are just perfect. Yeah, because I'm just all the time listening to them and okay, how can I upgrade? What can I learn from this? They're really good. So I think it's an amazing decision to just go freelance with your own studio.
Well, thanks a lot. I mean, I thought your mixes were great too.
Thanks, man.
And to be honest, everyone's mixes are great. And like you said, it's the Mix Off Monday thing. Like we've talked about behind scenes with everyone, that it's such a good sort of experience just seeing what other mixers do to the same track. And like you say, you're like, oh, they done that there. What did they actually do? And then you try and listen in and be like, okay, yeah, like yours sounds really open in the top end. Why is that? And then that just like feeds back onto like myself, and then I try and do that. And then I think it's going to be a really good thing, because this is fairly new as well. So we've only done a couple really, but we want it to be continual. And I think it's really going to help all of us sort of grow as mixers, because you're constantly like learning off one another, and just kind of getting lots of different genres coming in, lots of different material to work with, and as we know, it's always about practice really to improvement. So yeah, that's really exciting.
Definitely. Well, I learned so much from Chris' mixes, from Mark's mixes, from your mixes. This is really helping with the improvement. And what is better than learning than together?
Yeah, exactly. It's the way to do it, really. It's very. I think it can be done, but it's very hard to learn on your own. Like, you can watch YouTube videos and there's lots of good ones out there and teaching stuff, but you need that sort of feedback from other people. and
Yeah.
and the sort of, although we're not so in the traditional sense of being an assistant engineer, you learn by sort of watching, you know, the head engineer working on a track. And although we're not watching each other mix, we sort of see the aftermath of that. So in a way, we're sort of learning that way too.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. Okay, let's go shortly back to your time as a teacher in music production. So you told us how it worked, but okay, I got the question. What was your motivation to become a teacher in music production?
So I sort of fell into it, to be honest. So I initially, well, it's never in my head to teach, like, you know, when I was growing up or anything like that. I just wanted to work in audio in some capacity. You know, sort of, I think like a lot of teenagers' dreams, it's okay, I want to work in a big studio and be like own a massive studio and work in there. And then obviously sort of along the way you learn there's lots of other viable options to work in audio, whether that's things like teaching, teching, you know, sound design, film, TV, all that kind of stuff. You know, the sort of narrow path that you begin with opens up into these different possibilities. So yeah, I never set out to necessarily become a teacher. Like I said, I just sort of fell into it. So I started with my technician side, and I began, as I say, I'm a certified Pro Tools trainer as well for the 100 and 200 level. And I started teaching on those. So that's how I began teaching, really. And it's a bit more of a constrained way of teaching because, well, not a way of teaching, but there's a very specific topics we need to cover within that. So you can sort of follow along. But that's how I started. And I just quite enjoyed it, really. It's the main thing. And then through that, obviously, I gained experience of actually talking to large number of students, help guiding them through how to use a kind of bit of software. And then I fell into I might cover a lesson here or there, or I might assist with along with a module. And then really what motivated me to carry on teaching and sort of develop that side of my skill set, if you like, and what I enjoy doing. It was really the sort of the interaction you have with students. So when you can actually see them kind of understand a concept or then build on something from advice that you've given them, and yeah, you know, become a better mixer, and you see that happening, it just, you know, selfishly it feels good in a way, but unselfishly, I guess, you know, it is helping someone improve on their own personal journey, whatever that might be. So yeah, I guess that was the motivation, but that's almost a motivation after I'd already become a teacher. But yeah, otherwise I sort of just fell into it.
That's amazing. I think it's beautiful when you can go to work and you're actually learning something and teach other people on their path.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's something you sort of learn fairly quickly, I think growing up, or especially I did growing up, my teachers, well, you view your teachers as these sort of oracles of like knowledge. You know, you think they know everything. But then as you get to sort of university level, and well, just as you grow up, you understand that not everyone can know everything, even about their you know, chosen subject, if you like. And pretty quickly you get questions that you realize, oh, I don't quite fully know the answer to that, or don't have an opinion on that particular you know, subject, whatever it might be. So yeah, you've got to prepare yourself for knowing that you don't know it all. And then as a teacher, you're still learning as well. So part of a teacher's role is just to learn, and you can learn from your students. You can learn obviously from any other sources as well. But it's continual growth kind of career, if you like.
Todd, I absolutely love it, what you're saying. I really love the view that you have on this. It's not like you are the big guy that knows everything. You are also evolving with the questions. I think that's a big thing, because people will always come up with new questions. So you will always learn something new to it.
Yeah, you can't have, 5 questions that you've written answers for and expect them to come up. Like I say, it's always going to change. And I think if you were trying to get around that, trying to pretend that you did know it all, you'd come unstuck fairly quickly.
Definitely. So, Frank, tell us, what are your daily tasks and what range of topics do you cover when you are teaching?
So, range of topics that I cover, it's mainly on the music technology side. We're pretty much thinking digital and analog audio, some of the science behind that. So we like a sort of background in the technology. So we want our students to sort of understand what is going on at the base level. And then we also teach kind of recording and audio editing, audio mixing, the practical side of this as well. So we teach the theory, you get the practical, and those two marry up. But these are also both really technical. Okay, so we teach the technical side of mixing or audio recording. So, why this microphone has a cardioid pattern, what you might use a cardioid pattern for, the pros and cons of it, how it can be used in certain situations, that kind of thing. And then from moving on from that, which we sort of get into at a later stage once everyone's got this sort of base value of knowing the theory and then knowing practically what you can do. So like, okay, if you want to cut the mids, that low mids, that will be 250 hertz or whatever to clean something up, whatever it might be. And then we also cover the creative side as well. And this is something that I like to focus on personally a bit more. I think sometimes as engineers, I think it's probably our personality type. We get bogged down a bit in the technicals, which as a music technician myself, I should do at some level. But I think we can get a bit carried away with, okay, to make this sound better, you need to boost this EQ here or this thing here. So I also like to cover the creative part of, there's no one right way of mixing, as Mix Off Monday has seen. So, it's about helping them find their own sound and doing this through a creative process. So it's not showing them one way to do things. It's showing them these are the tools that you can use. Here's some examples of different ways you could go around. These are different examples of how we could add a reverb, for instance, to a particular sound, how many different reverbs we might use, what that sounds like. And then it's down to the student to then experiment with these and learn from that. So that's kind of what it's music technology theory, the practical side of that, and then the creative side of that in sort of audio recording, editing, and mixing. That's what I focus on. And then obviously in the course as a whole, there's a whole range of other topics as well, which sort of intertwine one another. So it gets a bit more complicated.
This sounds interesting. Really good range of topic. I was surprised that you learn also the creative side of it. So
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I think like I said, that's what I'm trying to push a little bit more, because I think sometimes it just gets forgotten a bit. That it almost gets forgotten that we're making music, and it's almost like we're doing, I don't know, some sort of science experiment. And yeah,
that's so true, because this will make it different. I how is it, the Gear Sluts forum where people are really fighting? It's like a war zone, yeah.
yeah,
And I never understood it, because it will be always different. Everybody will have different headphones, different ears. There is no, like you said, no one way how to mix it. And it's good to cover the basics, that you can edit quick, quick and clean.
yeah,
That's also a thing. Edit quick and clean, but then at the end, put your own touch. Like this is, for me, all the fun in mixing. After a while, when you come in, if you're mixing 200, 300 songs, you start having templates. Most of the technical stuff, you can hear it, you can train your ears. But then
yeah,
what makes you special about it?
yeah, totally. And when you're working with musicians as well, musicians don't always have this technical background. So they might be asking for something technical, or most likely something creative. I can't think of any examples right now, but they're asked for this creative decision, and you're going to have to make that and translate it into, the technological side of that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you need both, otherwise you can't just lock yourself off in a world of sort of numbers.
Numbers and frequencies.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. So whom would you recommend to go to the music production school? To everybody, or?
So, well, definitely not everyone. And I think there's just a lot of things to consider. Obviously, it's a big decision. There's a lot of things to consider before you go, or if you go. And so there's a sort of expectation sometimes, I think, that can hinder the outcome you get from some sort of educational course in specifically music technology or music production, that kind of thing. And I think there's almost an emphasis on the idea that you can go into a place, almost just sit through lessons, come out the other side with a degree, and then into a studio job. But that's not what they provide. It's not a sort of in and out and then you suddenly know it all. Obviously, it takes a lot of self-learning. And the way I like to think of it really is it's a space that provides one, sort of the time to do this work. So the time to practice. Obviously, the teachers, the lessons, the peers around you. So a group, a network of people that you can work with and start, networking and building up kind of a portfolio. So the time, the resources to do that as well. And really, you want to see it as a space where you can, spend, say, 3 years, or if you're on a short course, however long it is, where you're making the most of every opportunity that's there. So seeing the people around you, working with them, offering your services, seeing the amount of free time you've got that you might not have if you were in full-time employment, and using that free time wisely to actually mix and whatever you might want to do. Another useful thing, depending which sort of course you go for, one is that it can open up new ideas into what you want to do. So if you're really set what you want to do, there might be a very specific course, or you might not need a course because you only want to do this sort of one thing with audio. I mean, you'll be very lucky if you get to do just that one thing. But you might have a clear idea. Someone else might just be a bit more vague, and I like working with audio. And a place like a music production course can often open up a wider range of, I can go into this area. And that certainly happened with me when I was at university as well, because I was that guy who's like, I just want to work in a studio. And then I went to uni, and yeah, we studied some other things, like forensic audio, audio for TV, film, games, stuff like this. And it's like, okay, it hadn't even crossed my mind. So sometimes if you're sort of in that stage where you're not quite sure what to do, it can be helpful. But yeah, I mean, it's a big decision. So you've obviously got to weigh it up with the cost as well, whatever it might cost.
Oh yeah.
So it's a tough decision. But I think I do think sometimes universities or and particular music production courses get a bad rep, as in, oh, you can learn this stuff on YouTube or whatever, which in a sense, like, the topics still are on YouTube, so you can, but there's other things associated with this. And I think a lot of old school mixers sort of say, oh, well, you should, become a studio. The only way is to become a studio assistant, and then when the other guy dies, you can take their place. It's quite a one in, one out sort of scenario. And obviously, that's, if you can get into that situation, that's great, but it's not available for a lot of people. So it can be useful. And I think whatever way you go about it, you just need to weigh up. I think you need all these things to get a sort of a good music career off the ground, or at least develop as a engineer or whatever you want to be. One is, and the easy one to sort of get, is the learning resources. So if that's, if you went to university, that would be the lecturers and the resources in the library, things like that. If you don't go to university, that might be short courses, it might be YouTube videos, Lynda, whatever it is. You've got those resources. Then I think you need time. Where do you get that time? So time to practice this stuff, because you can't just watch it and then know it. As we all know, we only get better as mixers by doing more mixing. It doesn't matter how many videos we watch in between. It's the doing that counts. So it's having that time. Now what is the way you're going to get that time? Another one is feedback. I think it's really useful, like we were talking about with Mix Off Monday, being able to show our mixes to someone, and someone actually commenting on them in a useful way. Obviously at university, that's your lecturers, you have tutorials, things like that. It's also your peers. So again, if you think university is not for you, that's good. But just if you have some people that you can show your work to, and have this space to get some feedback going, so you can develop. A network's important, like I mentioned, with peers, your fellow students. Again, if you're not going to uni, it's just maybe friends around you. Get into a scene, something where there's people to work with. And yeah, I think then if you weigh all that, if you can get those kind of sorted in your head, where you'll get those things from, that may be a university to cover all of them. It may be, different places here and there. But if you're hitting those bases, I think you have a good chance of learning what you want to learn and developing in the right way and going in the right direction that you want to head.
Amazing. These are golden tips. I can just underline it. Definitely. Yeah. You need feedback. I started with YouTube at the beginning, and with Lynda.com actually. They were my first tutorials that I could watch, because I had free access from my IT job. And when I decided I don't want to do this anymore, I checked Lynda.com instead of watching how computer viruses work or whatever. I watched how compressors work, and YouTube was a little bit confusing because there were also a lot of fights. I didn't know, am I good? am I bad? Should I do this? Should I not do this? So this is really the part where the feedback comes in. And for me, it really helped that I joined the Produce Like a Pro Academy, because people started to review the mixes and tell me, hey, there is something with 350, there is too much on the top end, your cymbals are too splashy or whatever, and I could course correct and also learn how to give feedback as well and what to listen for. So this is gold, and it sounds good that you have it also in the university.
Yeah,
it's a big plus.
A good community is really, really a good resource. And like you actually just mentioned as well, giving feedback is really useful, because sometimes you can get carried away with doing the mix and you're in that zone, and then you sort of send it out and hear feedback back. But if you get used to listening to other people's mixes and seeing what's wrong with theirs, then you have a better chance of understanding what's wrong with your own mix, and developing that way. So community is really helpful.
Definitely. I would like to add something to it. You don't only learn what's wrong in the mix, but you can even learn about the setup from somebody, how he have the speakers. Maybe some low end is missing because the speakers are wrong. It goes really deep when you really listen to it and talk with somebody, and have a peer group to learn. And if somebody else put the speaker wrong or not in the best position, you learn as well. You can check it out online, how to put the speakers in optimum space. Do I have my speakers in optimum space? And stuff like this. It's just a tale of learning.
Yeah. It goes in circles sometimes. You can spiral down into, you think you start learning one thing at the top, and then a little while later you're learning something completely different.
Oh yeah, man. And I wanted to ask you, because you gave now really good advice for mixing engineers, how to start mixing, and what would be your best advice for people who want to become a teacher?
So I think you've got to sort of try and soak in any education you've received or are receiving in the future, and sort of try and understand I think if you understand what works for you as a student as well, it might not work for all your students, but if you can understand what gets you sort of ticking when you're being taught something and you're engaged, that will help then you translate that to your students. Because I think sometimes you can sometimes think as a teacher, like I kind of mentioned this before, that you have the information, and then if you just say that information, you're sort of teaching.
I'm sorry, my internet connection broke.
Oh, hello.
Oh, can you hear me again?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay, it was a little bit too windy.
Oh, right. I don't know when I cut out. But yeah, I was just saying, it's sometimes easy to, like, as a teacher, think you have the information that students want, so you just say, like, oh, this is how to do this, this is how to do this. But obviously that's a not very engaging class, and you're not encouraging learning, you're just kind of repeating stuff. So it's trying to think about how to engage students, and a way that helps with that is just thinking about when you felt really engaged in a class. Well, it might not even be a class, it could be those times when you've just shared a mix to someone and they've given you feedback and a little bit of teaching alongside that, and for some reason you were really captivated. Try and, like, hone in on what that is. And the other thing is something that I mentioned earlier, which is understand that you come to terms with the fact that you don't know everything, and like I said, if you try and hide that, you'll be caught out. Teach what you do know. You can learn together, and I think that's helpful with students as well. Otherwise, you come across as too much like a not a know-it-all, but kind of too much like a senior figure in a way, and can be kind of intimidating. Yeah. I don't know if that will help anyone, if that's any good advice.
Well, I really like the advice. It's always a good reminder, not only for teachers, but in general in life. I think it's a good way that we can explain somebody something when we are even talking with people and give some feedback. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no worries.
So Frank, what are your next steps for 2021? What are you planning?
So I'm currently doing my PGCHE, which is a postgraduate in higher education teaching. So that will finish this year. So past that's one of the things. Past that, I want to sort of grow my home studio, grow my client list, get more work coming in for my freelance stuff. That's what I'm trying to push, really. And then also, I want to start doing some kind of extracurricular activities at the university I work at, just for the students, because they've had a pretty bad time with the coronavirus and lockdown, and especially with practical and group-based as well subjects like music technology. We can't get many people in the studios, can't teach in there, it's too small. They haven't had the best time, so I'd like to try and thinking of doing like a little mixed club type thing, get some things happening, so there's a bit more to engage with, because it hasn't been a good year for them, kind of logistically with how everything's going on. So that's my plan for 2021. We'll see which ones of those I tick off.
Amazing. I wish you luck with this, especially with building out your studio.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So when we are there, where can people find and book you?
So I have my own website, which is frankleonardwalker.com, which it's got all my information in there. You can find me on there. Facebook, Instagram, they're all /Frank Leonard Walker. Again, you can contact me through any of those if you wanted to. On the website as well, I'm also doing a studio build blog. So this around me, like I said, I only finished a few months ago, but I've sort of photographed the whole process. So every couple of weeks, I'm putting out a little post on each step of the process. So hopefully that will be a useful sort of thing to follow along, especially if anyone's thinking of building their own space, or just kitting out a room to sound a bit better. Hopefully there's some usable advice in there.
Oh, for sure. I hope I'm following you. I will check it out. And thank you so much for your time and for sharing these wonderful tips with everybody.
I will put.
Oh yeah, always good to talk with you. And we will see each other also in the mix of Mondays.
Yeah.
What I'm very excited for. I really love it. Happy that I'm on board.
Yeah.
I will put all the links in the description. Everybody can check out Frank's process, how to build the studio. Check out your webpage, check out your mixes, and also the mix of Mondays. You can join us every Monday, every second or third. And thank you very much, my friend.
Yeah,
wish you all the best.
Cheers. No, thanks a lot. You too.